So we come back kind of really to a dimension, I think, here, which is eternal, an issue that has been with us all along, and that is still with us. And that is the fact that we are suffering, we are miserable in all kinds of ways, that life is just really frustrating and not very satisfactory, and that no matter what we do and what kind of concrete and abstract situations we come up with, this underlying existential malaise, and you know, malaise really just means sickness in French, is with us. And that there are certain ways in which this has been looked at, which are at least potentially, I think, very redeeming and very creative. And they are the ways that Buddha and the Gnostics suggested. Buddha said that enlightenment is the end of suffering. The Gnostics of the West said very much the same thing. Gnosis liberates us not only in time, they said, but it liberates us from time. And here again, we can reiterate, liberation in time is always temporary, because anything that we do within time bears the imprint of time. See this, here also I think the sort of wrong-headed twists that have entered into the religious picture over the centuries and over the millennia are in part responsible for this. Because while, at least I believe that, for instance, Christianity, for that matter, just about all the other religions, started with a full knowledge of this timeless realm, and they all looked upon at least the human spirit as timeless, coming from a timeless realm into time, and then going back to the timeless realm again. Somewhere along the line, certain twisted ideas slipped into the religious picture, which said, oh, but what you do here in time will influence what happens to you once you get out of time again. All the notion of sin and mortal sin that propels you into hellfire and things of that sort. And these, I think these have confused the issue, and may have been the seeds of some of these contemporary confusions about how time and the timeless relate to each other. So the human tries to defeat history, tries to put an end to history. Hegel and Marx tried to bring history to a close by promoting a final good condition for humanity. As I mentioned before, Marxism was a dismal and cruel failure. Hegelianism probably will be no better. Karma is no solution either, as we noted earlier, because, may I comfort those to whom karma is a kind of a buzzword, sort of a mantra, that karma at best only describes the situation within which we are. Karma is a particular model according to which the chain of suffering is explained. This is how it happens. But even if we had the correct notion about it, knowing how it happens doesn't stop it happening. See? In order for that to happen, something else has to happen. We have lost sight of that to a great extent. The Hindus knew all along that one has to achieve karma-lessness if one is to be liberated. But Westerners, to whom these were very novel ideas, as they came to them in the 19th century, reincarnation, karma, and so forth, they became so enamored with the concept that they thought that the concept itself is somehow salvific. Oh, reincarnation. Oh, how wonderful. Well, it's wonderful if it's an alternative to going to hell, being pinched and roasted and in various ways discomfited by devils, certainly it is also wonderful if it's an alternative to just cessation of existence, that when your brain quits functioning and your heart quits beating, nothing, nada, karmics, rien du tout, finished, you know. That's a terrible, some people say, oh, that's wonderful concept. Oh, yeah, sure. But the thing is, underneath it all, I think it's the thing that we are most terrified of. A nothing, a cessation, is worse than hell to our consciousness. So certainly as an alternative to these things, reincarnation and even karma were wonderful. But, you know, then you come to realize, then what? After you keep reincarnating, then what? After you keep creating, making karma, then what? I tell you what. Over and over and over and over again goes the circle, goes the cycle. It can't be otherwise. Not unless you rise above it in some fashion. That is where I think that those Westerners who have adopted these concepts have adopted them in a twisted fashion because of their own problems and their own predilections. And they haven't seen that one has to get out of reincarnation also, one has to get out of karma also, which the people who first had these concepts knew all along. But we have somehow forgotten it. And to us, meditation is in order to develop certain skills of the mind, as I mentioned before, and yoga is so that our joints are going to creak a bit less, and our muscles will function a little bit longer. Just the same as running or running on one of these stationary bicycles and things of that sort. I always thought bicycles were made in order to get somewhere. Now they stand in one spot and people there. Very strange. Rather like one of those little animals, little hamster or something in the cage where you put in this little wheel which is the hamster's exercising machine. The poor little fellow gets in there and thinks he's getting somewhere, you know. He's going to get out of the cage if he runs in there, but he doesn't get anywhere. He's just there and then he gets tired and goes to sleep. Time and again, we are, the Gnostics, we are told, and certainly I am told, that we are pessimists. Because we see that all of this, that reincarnation prolongs the agony, that cycles and ages and vast chronologies that move from star to star and aeon to aeon are but counterfeits of eternity. And that also is important to remember. If you think that millions and millions of years of traveling around spiritually or otherwise from one star system to the other and one cycle to the other and one body to the other, that this is somehow wonderful, then I pity you. You know why? Because you have not had a taste of eternity. And therefore you don't know the difference between a long duration of time and eternity, which is outside of time. And yet, it's not a big deal. You know, people say, well, what are we to do? What are we to do? Well, you know, if I had something, if I had well, magic mushrooms are probably illegal by now, but let's say, I don't know, if I had a magic pound cake, or something like that, that would do it, you know. I'd give you the recipe. I assure you I'd give you the recipe. Maybe you'd bake some for me, because I'm not such a good baker. But I don't have such a recipe. But the issue is that we are eating the magic pound cake all the time, and we don't know it. And we don't know what it really does. Because time and again we have confrontations in our life with the eternal dimension. With the eternal, with the timeless, with that which is not duration, but outside of it. And we feel exalted for a minute, one thing, but then it goes away. So if we could just be conscious of these times when these come to us, then maybe we could sort of add them up and get the feeling more and more. And then when it came to us in a major way, we would know what it is. That's what the Tibetans do with their bardo. The bardo is again, as you know, of course, and I have talked about it too, is based on the notion that when you die, there is a brief opportunity for liberation. Not for coming back, for liberation. And that is the pure light, the pure Buddha light. But the Tibetans also, when the Tibetans read the bardo to the dying person, there is one phrase there, for instance, there are others like that, he said. Your teacher, your guru has already shown you that light when you were in the body. Now remember it and go to it. So, upon what we experience here now depends on what happens then. Don't expect to be enlightened after death if you have never seen the light now, because you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it. Just removing the body does not do the trick. Look at all these spiritualist communications and things like that. Of course, most of them are fake, but the few that are not, they are inane. That's the main problem with them. They're not bad, they're inane. You get a lot more useful things out of simple, untutored living people here than all these dead people. Why is that? Well, I would think it is because death doesn't make you wise. Death doesn't make you smart. Death doesn't make you good. Death just takes away the vehicle in which you have been walking around, that's all. And so there's the same schmo over there, but minus his body. And then people go over there and say, oh, great schmo, please come and possess this medium and tell me something important. And the medium goes into all kinds of, the channeler to you, goes into all kinds of contortions and froths at the mouth and twists and turns and, just looks absolutely awful. And then starts pouring forth inanities. Much better things than that you could dream up yourself any day. But the reason for that being is that one does not wise up by dying. But if the process has started here already, then there is a chance of its continuation. If the guidance is there, if the consciousness is there, if the awareness is there. Now, these are, of course, very much germane, I think, to our considerations. I believe I have read this at some time or the other in the past to you, but it is a little verse by the great magical writer William Butler Yeats that I am particularly fond of. And Yeats wrote this for one of the Golden Dawn initiations, initiation 7 = 4, which is a fairly high one, when one leaves the manifest world behind and through the stars, it's typical Gnostic journey, goes to eternity. And here is what Yeats wrote. We are weighed down by the blood and the heavy weight of the bones. We are bound by flowers, and our feet are entangled in the green, and there is deceit in the singing of birds. It is time to be done with it all. The stars call, and all the planets, and the purging fire of the moon, and yonder is the cold silence of cleansing night. May the dawn break, and gates of day be set wide open. This is the Gnostic movement. This is the essence of the Gnostic effort. To move away from the limitation, the heaviness, the unconsciousness, and come to that which is timeless, beyond all things. And this does not involve a value judgment. See, Yeats never says that the blood and the weight of the bones are evil, but he says they are heavy. Like the Hindus say the Kali Yuga is heavy. And he doesn't say that the flowers are bad, or the green, or that the birds are evil, but there is deceit in all of this. And what is the deceit? The deceit is primarily that they seem to whisper to us, this is all there is, and nothing else. Be satisfied with this. Don't look for anything else. That is the deceit. And it is that kind of deceit where the Buddha sitting under the tree looks forward and says, architect, you will not build this house again. I will not live in your house, in your prison any longer, because I have burst the house apart. And never again will I be contained in this cocoon. Will I be spun into this illusion? Will I live in, no matter how golden and how bejeweled and how glorious the bars of that prison are, I will not be behind them again. You see? But you know, one can talk with feeling and some eloquence about these things, but the issue is to do it. And the doing involves really an ongoing program of one's life. And it is something that one has to remind oneself again, over and over again, this is what I am about. Because if this world and this body are all there is, then our recognition of the radical limitations of these really stamp us as pessimists. If this is all there is, then despair is the only reasonable state of consciousness. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And let's face it, I think it is perhaps better to be in despair than to fool oneself on an ongoing manner, which is what we are doing all the time. But despair is not the answer, because there is something else. Jesus, for instance, along with other great teachers, has been called the man of sorrows. But he wasn't called the man of despair. The man of despair is Judas, the betrayer, who then is so downcast about what has gone on and so forth that he hangs himself on the tree. So that is not the way. Because there is an other, a greater, a more permanent, an abiding reality. And when we have as much as touched that, then I think our orientation toward that reality stamps us much more as optimists than as pessimists, if indeed these terms have any meaning at all. And to the extent that our efforts in this direction are crowned even by the smallest success, then I think our expectation has been really justified beyond measure. Suffering cannot cease while the causes of suffering are present and operative. This one sentence really is the essence of Buddhism, that there is suffering and there is a cause of suffering. And one might add to that, by way of a commentary, the cause is not at the level of the suffering itself. The cause is in the mind, and in the mind's way of being entangled in this suffering, and when that is undone, then everything changes. People forget this. There is supposedly a greater interest in Buddhism nowadays, and I think it's obviously a good sign. But we have to keep in mind, for instance, that these things are these underlying principles are the essence of Buddhism. Not this meditation and that meditation and vipassana and Zen and Dzogchen and this and that. Those are all means to the end. But why should you be practicing Zen? Why should you be practicing vipassana? Why should you be studying Dzogchen? To be liberated. That's why. But if you don't think that there is anything to be liberated from, if you don't think that there is anywhere to go in terms of liberation, then forget all of this stuff and make money or enjoy yourself. Or first you have to make money, then you have to enjoy yourself, because you have to pay. You have to pay for the enjoyment, don't you? That's the way it kind of works. But Buddha recognized the nature of the world and the way out of it. If you don't see this, then you don't know Buddhism. And even if you should sit around the temple for the rest of your life, or sit with the Dalai Lama till the yaks go home or come home, it will not do you any good. And this, of course, is identical with Gnosticism. To recognize the suffering, the impermanence, the soulless nature of the existential condition within which you are, and to recognize the way beyond it, the way, indeed, the way out of it.